I'm Gurvir. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be taking you through Photoshop and Lightroom and I'll show you how I edit my images. By using Lightroom as the initial base for my images, I'll kind of go through the adjustments and show you how I tone the image and get the brightness and contrast and get the detail out the shadows and highlights. From there, I'll be taking these images into Photoshop. By using adjustment layers and curves and blending modes and different tricks, I'll be showing you how I sharpen images, dodge and burn them, create vignettes and tone the images and create that final polished look. I'll be going through two of my images today to show you this. Before we start, I'd like to let you know that I do have a 20% off on the actions and videos on my website. You can check them out by going to www.gurvirjohal.com/store. The code that you want to be entering is TPS 2021 and that gives you 20% off everything. Okay, without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, we have our image here in Lightroom. We're going to start with this image here. I've taken this image into two pictures. The first image has actually been taken with a light in. It's being held by my assistant, who's actually holding the continuous light here inside a softbox. With this image, we've actually exposed for the image where I want with the highlights and shadows. And we actually I actually have photographed another image. I am more or less identical by holding the camera very still. I'm actually able to take two images. Unfortunately, I was able to photograph this image on a tripod due to it being a very busy market square in Morocco. So by hand holding the image very close and very tight and just being able to take two images very quickly and asking for my lighting assistant to jump out of the shot for my second image, I'm actually able to merge these images in Photoshop, and I'll show you how we do that. So going back into Lightroom, so we have our base image, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the contrast down just a little bit, bring our highlights down just a tiny little bit, and bring our shadows up. I kind of bring in the contrast a little bit more in post, so I'm not really too fussed about that. It's not a scenario where I just add that in now. So I'll bring our blacks up just a tiny little bit. Bring the clarity up just to add a little bit of punch into the image. Bring our highlights up just a little bit, as for the arm. Bring our lights up overall. And our darks up just a tiny little bit. And same with our shadows. I just want to make this bride's dress pop out a little bit more, and I do know that's the red. So by hitting the red channel with our luminance, I'm actually able to just bring that red all the way up so you can see before and after. And I want to just bring the saturation up just a little bit in that area as well. And with our yellows, I'm assuming they're going to be just these little tiny little bits around. Bring the luminance up and down just to see. I can bring that down just to bring down the highlight issues in some areas, especially this box here. And the orange does the same thing, just overall. Around about here. Once I'm happy with this image, I actually select both of the images as they actually are right now, and then I can actually sync. Make sure all the boxes are ticked. It doesn't make a difference about the crop. I haven't cropped into this image, so we are going to synchronize them. And the second image should have the same settings applied to the first, just in this area, which I'm happy with. And we will now export these images. And then we now take these images into Photoshop. And we have both of our images. So what I want to do, using the cursor tool, doesn't make a difference which layer it is. I'm just going to take the base layer. And we're going to press and hold that. Press and hold onto the background layer. Just drag it into the other file and then let go. And I'll just place the image somewhere on top. And just line them up thereabouts like so. Once they're positioned, I'll highlight both those layers on the layer palette by hitting Shift and then tapping onto the layer. So now we can see both those layers have been highlighted. We will now auto align these layers by going to Edit, Auto Align, and then Auto. And what Photoshop does at this point, it's going to merge both of those layers on top of each other, and it's actually going to make sure they're all shifted and everything's lining up. So there should be no sort of discrepancies or any warping, so to speak. I don't know how it does it, but it's something that Photoshop does back in the background, and as you can see, it's done a brilliant job. So I'll show you, this is our base layer and this is our top layer, and you can see now everything lines up. Clearly the bride and groom don't line up because on the second shot they've actually moved out of place just a little bit by just leaning back, but I'm just looking at these lanterns and everything lights up. So with the top layer selected, I will just invert the mask by hitting Command and I, and then using, because it's a black mask, with a white brush, making sure the white is pressed around about 100%. Increase the brush size. I just want to paint this light away bit by bit. Let's make sure it's accurate, and then just paint it away. And I'm kind of happy with the way that that's been done. So once that's done, I'll merge both of these layers by hitting Command and E, and that's actually merged them. I want to crop into this image just a little bit. Let's bring it up from the bottom and a little bit up from the bottom here. I'll begin toning the groom, this gentleman here in the bottom right hand corner a little bit later on. I'll bring the top down just a little bit because you can see the light is different on there's a difference in the light at the top lantern. So I'll just bring this down just a little bit just to get rid of that issue. Okay, I'm happy with the base layer. So from here, we're just going to make a few little adjustments. Using our adjustment layer, I'll be using our curves. And with our curves, the reason I use curves to dodge and burn an image, it's just one of the methods I use. There are several different methods. It's probably the quickest way. So with the dodge layer, we will be pulling our curve down, and with the burn layer, we'll be pulling, with the dodge layer, we'll be bringing our curve up, and then with our burn layer, we'll be pulling the curve down. I'll show you an example right now. So this is our burn layer. Watch what happens to the image as I pull the curve down. It gets darker and darker. So I don't want to bring it all the way, just bring it down just a little bit. And then watch what I do, what happens when I bring this curve up. It brightens the image right now. I do have an action for this, so I'll just remove this. It's actually called Dodge and Burn that I've made. So press play, and it's created our action for us. And if I open this up, it's actually created two layers, the burn and the dodge. And they have been inverted already, so all I need to do is with a brush, we'll start off with that brightening. With our brush, I'll bring around about, changing my opacity from 100 down to 30. I'll be painting in the areas that I just want a little bit brighter, a little bit more attention to it, and that's probably address just a little bit. So you see that? This is before and after. Just makes a little pop on the dress. And we want to do the same with her face and her arm and her forearm as well. But I'm trying to go in the same direction as the light, so you can see there's a little bit of a shadow on the back side of her arm. So what I will be doing is just kind of avoid that area, so to keep it a little bit more dynamic, to give it a little give it that resemblance that the shadow's still there, just to give it a little bit of punch. So just brighten one side, not on both sides of the arm. Just like so. Do the same with the groom's face. And there you go. So I'll just show you before and after, just with the brightening areas. We can do the same. Changing our opacity maybe down to around about 20%. Just bring out some of the details in some of these lanterns. Just a little bit here. It's a great method just to bring out the details in certain areas of the image and darkening certain areas of the image. So now we have our dodging done. Now we can concentrate on our burning. And with our burning, what I would want to do is I'll probably just darken a little bit of her dress, just to give a little bit more exaggeration to the areas that we just actually brightened. So once again, around about 30% opacity, you can go down to 20%, just do it gradually. Just darken areas of the dress. Just give that element of a little bit more of a curve. Darken the hair just a little bit. And I want to bring away the tension away from some of these lanterns, especially these ones in the foreground. So we'll just darken these areas here just a little bit. kind of generally happy with that, the way that the image is sitting right now. So this is just the burning, just those little areas. So you can see it just enough. Just watch these lanterns as I toggle the mask on off for now. Maybe just a little bit more in this area as well. Okay. Now with that said and done, the only thing that I would actually want to do to this image is sharpen the image and create a vignette. The sharpening element of an image, I don't retouch an image and then keep going back and forth with sharpening, and then carry on retouching and sharpen, carry on retouching and sharpen. Sharpening is generally the last thing that I do to an image. So, and it's always done at the output that I want to print the image at. So for example, this image, if I was to check, this image is actually in inches, 12 by 18. But if I was to print this image at, I don't know, a little bit smaller size, like a 10 by 8, I wouldn't sharpen at 12/18 and then resize to 10/8 and then print. I'd resize to 10 by 8 and then sharpen at that image and then print. So I'll show you different ways of sharpening the image. I'm just going to show you one method today. By the way, guys, the sharpening methods, there's some actions and videos already on the website for this. If you use the code, once again, TPS 2021, that actually gives you a discount to these actions, gives you 20% off for 30 days as of the 6th of March. So head over, get yourself a discount. It's on the website at gurvirjahal.com/store. Okay, so we're just going to show you one of the methods for sharpening an image. So what I'll do is I'll merge these layers into a separate layer by hitting Shift, Option, Command and E, and it creates all of these layers underneath onto its own separate layer. So if I was to show you what we've done so far, here's our before and here's our after, just bringing out elements of the image. So we want to sharpen the image. I'm going to sharpen the image by using the high pass. By high pass, we'll go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. And it brings up a dialog box like this, and the image should be grey. Don't panic at this moment. I know what you're going to think is, oh my god, my image is grey. What do I do? It's needed, so let's go right in. So once the image is grey, we want to adjust our slider, not all the way up like this. We want to bring our slider just up so where we can see our detail coming through. So it's around about here. We start seeing detail in a little bit the eyes, a little bit the clothes, a little bit the forearm, a little bit the lanterns. So if we zoom out just a little bit, yep, this is our detail coming through. So at this point we press OK. Then what we want to do to this layer is we want to change the blending mode by going to this palette here and changing our blending mode to overlay. And I'll show you what that's done to the image. So if we just look at the lanterns here on the left, here's the before, just in this area here. This is the before sharpen, and this is after sharpening. Before and after. And it's done the same all over to the image, so it does the same to the texture of the skin, brings it all out. So what I generally like to do at this point is, once the image is sharpened, is I can create a mask on this layer again by hitting this mask button here. Invert that mask, actually just leave that mask as it is because it's sharpening the whole image. And then what I want to do is paint away using a black brush, because it's a white mask, is paint away using opacity maybe around about 90. Paint away the skin because we don't want to sharpen the skin and bring out texture and skin. Just paint that away. Soften that up just a little bit. And then if I want to sharpen elements like features of the eyes and the eyelashes and the lips, what I do is, using a white brush now, is bring back those details just here. Just paint that back a little bit here, a little bit by the mouth, sharpen the mouth, a little bit in the eyelash, some in the eyebrow. And I'm kind of generally happy with the way that this image sits here. Last and final little bit as well is I just add a little vignette. The way I do the vignette is by hitting the create a new blank layer here and using our gradient paint bucket tool. I change our gradient from black to opacity, so it's opaque. So it goes from black all the way to see-through, and then around about 20%. So at the moment it's on 100, around about 20. You just grab the image from, click on the outside of the image. I'll zoom out a little bit. Click on the outside of the image from about there. Just bring it into the center of the couple, and then let go, and it just darkens just a little bit gradually. You do the same from this corner, and the same from this corner, same from this corner, and this corner, and then we can just bring it in a little bit more. The further out you go, the more of a soft blend it is from our vignette, and it gradually brings our vignette in. I mean, you can be very aggressive by just making the, instead of dragging our line very long, just have a small line like this, which I don't like. For a little bit gradual, just like so. Once you're happy with that, you can flatten the image and leave it as it is. So I'll just show you, there's the before vignette and there's the after, and I'm happy with this image. So if we just go to the image beforehand, hold on. There you go. So this is a before and this is the after. So here's before and here's after. It's just a way to polish this image. Okay. We're going to use another image now. With this image, it's actually a composite, so there's two separate images once again, but it's not with a light in and out. It's photographing different elements of an image, and then what we're going to do is we're going to piece these two elements together to make something a little bit more natural. There's a little bit more steps involved, so please do try and keep up. If you have any questions, there will be a Q&A a little bit right at the end of this video. Any of these actions that I'm going to be using today are once again available on the website at gurvirjohal.com/store. Please use the discount code TPS2021 to save yourself 20%. Okay, without further ado, let's jump back in. Okay, so we have our image here, and this is actually photographed in Commentary, and I actually like the way that this whole place was set up. So it's a little bit dark here. I'm just going to bring up the exposure so you can see the image and you can see me photographing the image. So my mind at the I had this idea that this was on a separate table. It's been put onto this glass table, this table which had a glass top. That glass top's been removed to create something like this. And I wanted something very symmetrical in this image. So I decided to photograph it like this and then take another image, just reset that, and then take another image of the bride in the bezel, a little bit behind her from the side to grab this image. It's going to be a little bit impossible to get both of them in, get this all done in one shot, solely due to the fact that there's no light falling on the bride. So this is a softbox actually lighting the bride up to bring bring more detail to her face and our attention. And it's to grab that bezel and then bring that back in. So what I'll do is I'll reset this. I'll just edit the first image. So I'm just going to bring our exposure up just a little bit. I'll bring our contrast down. I'll bring our highlights down just a tiny little bit, and I'll bring on our shadows up. And our whites and our blacks, bring them back up just a tiny little bit. Just make it a little bit softer in the image. And I'm kind of happy with the way that image is setting. Just want to make sure the white balance is the same across both images. At the moment it says 5300 and the other one's the same. So I'm going to sync the images up, but I don't think it's going to do the image justice where I want it to be. No, it doesn't. So we've got a little bit of clipping here in the light. So I'm just going to bring our highlights down just a little bit to combat that. I'll contrast up just a little bit on this image. And I'm not fussed about the shadow element of this mirror. I'm more worried about this side. Once again, this has actually been lit up this way with a softbox to create that. I'm not too concerned about the light here being lit up. It's just about getting enough light and detail into this area here. And once I've got that where I want it to be, around about here. Okay, excellent. I'm just going to export these two images into Photoshop once again. The goal is, when you're creating composite images, is to get a little bit more realistic in terms of, does the light fall the same way on both subjects? Is it coming from the same angle? When you have light coming from different ways, it gives this element that it's a little bit more fake. So you want to make the image a little bit more believable. And I'll show you how we do this in Photoshop as well. So with Photoshop, we open up our two files. And I'm going to concentrate on this image as opposed to this image. What I want to do is I just want to bring a line right into the center of the image, which is right about here. And shift this across to an area that I'm actually, yeah, about there. And then what I want to do here at this point, you can see the pattern of the wallpaper behind the mirror and behind the light fixture. It's actually not, it is symmetrical, as in the pattern does repeat itself, but the pattern's actually not in line with our mirror and in line with our lighting, because the pattern actually repeats around about, instead of repeating here, it's actually repeating here, just this line here. So it's just slightly off-centered. So what I'm going to do is, using our rectangle marquee tool, I'm just going to highlight the left hand side of the image. Once the left hand side of the image is highlighted, I'm going to hit Command and J, or on a PC it's Control and J, and it's going to duplicate just that part of the image. So if I just toggle it off, we just duplicate the left hand side of the image. With the left hand side of the image selected, I'm just going to go to Edit, Transform, and flip that horizontally. So it's flipped it on its axis. So I'm just move this in line to the center grid that we've made, and it will make us a very symmetrical image like so. So if you compare the original to this, now this is very symmetrical. Now I know what you're thinking, it looks like it's been cut and pasted, it looks a little bit too stuck on, and that element is solely due to the fact that we're actually losing this shadow here. So what I'll be doing is I'll be bringing this shadow back in a little bit later in post-production, and I'll show you that as well. So once I've got these two layers, the second layer just where I want it to be, I'll merge the image, and I'm just going to crop into the image and just get rid of a few distracting elements. This light fixture, and this little wall mark here as well, and bring the image down from the top. Just a little bit up from the bottom. Let's bring it out just a little bit more. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's bring this up a little bit more. Okay, so this is the part of the image there. This is the part of the image that we just need to clean up. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in, and using our healing brush tool, by increasing the size of it, I'm just going to be hitting Option from an area that I just like, I would want to paste over, and just kind of bring that in a little bit by little bit. Just kind of blended those colors in. Do the same on the other side. Like so. Okay, so now my main goal here is we just want to clean up the image as well. So we'll just clean up little elements like this, still using the healing brush tool. Oh. And so forth. Now what we can see is we can see our little dodo rail, I think it's called dado rail, is slightly not straight enough. So if we just use these guides here like this, what we can do is we can go to Edit, Transform, and Warp, and just using the center part of the image, just grab it let's get rid of this mark. Just grab it and then just bring it down just a little touch, just to straighten the image about here. And just bring the line in the top just to make sure everything lines up, and it does. I'm happy with that. Okay, so what we'll just crop into the image just a tiny little bit more. Before we do that, let's just grab our center point, which is there, and then crop. Yeah. And the same from the bottom, just bring the bottom up just a little bit. Okay, now we've got the bulk of the image done. Now it's just a case of bringing in our subject. So what I'm going to do is, using the elliptical tool, just draw a rough circle around the subject, and then just bring subject in there. Now I know there's a sizing issue, but there's a way for us to solve that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to toggle off this layer by hitting the I button, and I'm just going to make some guideline marks. With some guideline marks, it'll probably be using this, just this little black line, this first one here, all the way around, and that's the guide mark that I'm going to be using. So just bring your ruler mark just to the edge there, and another one right to the edge of this line here, and another one to the edge at the bottom here, another one to the edge right here. Now our elliptical image needs to be fitting this square. Yeah, well, this square as a guideline, which will make it oval. So let's toggle that. Let's see what we can do. So with this image, this top part of the image here needs to be with the bottom part aligned with the top there. So I'm looking at this little line here needs to be lined there, and the bottom line here needs to be lined at the bottom. So we'll line that up here like so. And by hitting Command and T, that brings up our transform tool. We can now bring in the image like so, and then the same at the bottom. Just a little bit more bigger. Like so. I'm losing a little bit of the sides, so I'll just bring the bezel in just a little bit. Like so. Once you're happy with that, then all we do is just paint the mask off. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a mask on this image, and we're going to invert this mask by Command and I, and then we shall start creating our elliptical tool in here. So what we are going to do is, using our elliptical tool, a marquee tool, we'll change our feather to around about, we'll start off with around, I think around about 3 should be fine. And what we do is we shall create our exactly more or less. It may need to be transformed by hitting select transform selection. You can see it's actually just missing this here just a little bit, so just bring this out a little bit here, bring this down just a touch, and this one across, this one up just a little bit. There you go. I'm happy with that, and it sits at the bottom just a little bit up. Too much. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then with our gradient, our paint bucket tool right here, using our because we're on a black mask, we want to use white, and then all I want to do is just fill in this and we'll bring the image back up. And voila. So we have something like this. Now I can see it looks a little bit more brighter in this area, so we can always just darken this area by hitting the adjustments. We'll bring our brightness down just a touch so it matches the image overall. But what this does is it makes the whole image just darken, but we don't want the whole image darkened, we just want this layer here darkened. So what we do is, with this layer selected, with this mask selected, there's a little button right next to the eye button, there's another little square box with like a down arrow. So we hit that and it brings that layer across, just shifts it across a little bit. So basically saying that adjustment layer isn't applied to the whole image overall, it's actually only applied just to the layer underneath. So here's before and after, so you can see it's just in that area. So I'm actually happy with that. I'll just bring the brightness up just a tiny little bit. I'm kind of happy with the way that sits. What I would do is I just tone the image overall. So what I can do is I can just use a plain black and white layer, put a little tint on it and bring this tint down to an orange, around about here, like a sepia tone. And then all I do with this is I bring this opacity down just a touch, just to give the image a little bit more overall tone to the image, like so. So it's before and after, it just tones down the light at the top, like so. Once again, we sharpen the image, or we can add a vignette. I'll just add a little vignette right now, using our gradient tool once again. Make sure it's black to transparent, just darken the image just a little bit. And then we can put a mask on this and then bring back the areas of the image using maybe like a 30% brush. Bring back elements of the image that you want brighter again. We'll bring it down to about 20%, sorry. Just like the light. It looks a little bit odd that the light's kind of dull. Just bring the detail through on that. Just a little bit here. Just like so. I think we can do a little bit of a dodge and burn as well, so we'll just apply that. By the way, guys, on the website there are different videos that cover a lot of these topics in a lot more depth and give you, like, for example, sharpening. I have about 2 different versions of sharpening. With dodging and burning, there's different methods for it as well. With all the video tutorials online, they also include actions. So all of the actions that I've been using today, including the sharpening and everything else, are actually included on the website. So I'll show you how I sharpen the image. So once everything's fine like this, I can flatten the image and I can run my high pass sharpen layer, and it does everything for me. All I have to do is adjust the slider to where I want it, to probably around about there. So there's before. I'll just zoom in so you can see. Here's the before and here's after. You can see the detail all coming through with the detail around the mirror, and especially the table here. Okay. And what I will do as well is just using our dodge and burn. Using a dodge and burn, I will add in a shadow just around about in this area here. So using a white brush on 30% opacity, because we're on a black mask, I'll just paint in a little bit of this area just gradually where I would expect there to be a shadow. Just like so. Just give it that little bit more of a realistic look. And then I can, using a black brush, around about 90% opacity now, is bring back what you painted on the furniture piece, like so. Be a little bit more accurate. I'm just going over here just a little bit, so we'll just paint that area back in. Just like so. You can actually just bring out the detail on these little cherubs. Once again, that's just using our dodge layer. A little bit more of the detail around here. Once again, I've just done this in the wrong order. You know, sharpening, I've just done a little bit beforehand. Sharpening, something that I do right at the end, which is why I deleted the sharpening mask. So working in different layers and masks and not flattening the image throughout, unless you're 100% happy, will always actually help you in the long run. We're actually going to open this up to a Q&A shortly. So thank you for joining along. If you have any questions, just pop them along. Once again, you can head over to the website. It's gurvirjohal.com/store, and on that you'll be able to get 20% off all the videos and actions using the code 2PS2021, and it's valid for 30 days with that code. By all means, you can sign up to the mailing list as well. The mailing list is on the website. That will keep you up to date with any news, any workshops, or any seminars that are coming into place as well. Thank you. Hi guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed some of my tips and tricks in Photoshop. I'm just going to go straight into the Q&A right now. Let's just see what we have right here. We have Martin. Yes, I know some of the subtitles I was watching back. Some of the subtitles were pretty hilarious. That's probably my Birmingham accent coming through. Scott Ray, why use the grads to vignette rather than the vignette tool? I actually prefer using a separate layer and using the gradient, as I'm able to actually draw in elements to the image. So at the moment I was kind of showing you how I vignette towards the center of the image. I mean, if I'm dodging and burning like from the bottom upwards, I have a little bit more control, and then using the opacity, around about 10-20%, I'm able to do it gradually, little bit by little bit, until I'm happy with with the vignette that I have. Then I can always mask out in different areas. I find that for me, I have a little bit more control. You have a similar question: why do so many use curves to dodge and burn rather than just use the dodge and burn tools? Just more control over what is being dodged and burned. Yes and no. When you're actually using the dodge and burn actual tool in the toolbar, you're actually killing pixels. So on that layer, if you was to flatten that layer and then you actually burn, you'll see that instead of darkening that part of the image, it gets to a certain point where it actually becomes almost black. And then once it goes black, you don't have any of the information left. And similarly, if you start dodging that part as opposed to burning, it becomes so bright that you're actually killing and destroying pixels. So I always use separate layers, curves layers, on the basis that I'm able to go back a couple of steps because it's a mask, and redo anything that I've done and correct any issues. I hope that's answered that question. Okay, a few more coming in. Thank you. If you were to convert this to black and white, how would you approach it? That's a brilliant question. With the black and white images, there's different, a common scenario where I see a lot of retouches is just using the black and white adjustment layer. There's nothing wrong with that, so to speak, but I do dive a little bit more into it. So if you was to probably go over to my website, go to the store, there's actually a complete section, complete video on black and white and monotone images. It includes a couple of actions, and it's a video tutorial. You save yourself 20% by using TPS 2021 with that. Great workshop, thank you. Leon Flack has asked them my website address. It's gurvirjohal.com. It's www.gurvir, Gurvir, and then Johal, JOHAL.com. Do you save your image as you are going along? I do. If it's a simple image, generally I can retouch an image within 10 to 15 minutes. So I generally don't. But if it's for something a little bit more laborious, as in there's a lot more time spent on it in the image, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, I'll generally save the image as I'm going along 100%. It's generally for competitions when I'm kind of retouching the image a little bit longer than a few minutes. See if we have anything else. Do you offer wedding photography workshops? I would like to be part of the team to learn as I'm looking to become a pro. I do offer photography workshops. Lockdown's going to put that on hold. I used to do workshops where one day workshops will be editing, complete editing and retouching in the classroom. Some of the workshops I hold were 2 days, 3 days, where it'll be day one will be shooting, day two will be editing, otherwise day three will be a bit of business. Just if you follow on to jump onto the website, join the mailing list. You'll be one of the first to find to hear about when the next workshops are announced. Generally, they're limited on spaces, maximum 20 to 25 students. So if you do want to sign up, I'd jump on that as soon as possible. Let's see if we have anything else. Don't have any more questions coming in. If there are any more questions that anybody wants to ask, by all means, jump onto my Instagram page. It's Gurvir Johal Photography. I think the Instagram handle is Gurvir_Johal. Feel free to ask me any questions there. If you want to use any of the discount codes, it's TPS 2021. That gives you 20% off everything on the website. Thank you once again for tuning in. Speak to you soon.